Tonight, Governor Newsom's push for redistricting is moving forward. Voters will now decide in November if the state should adopt newly redrawn congressional maps designed to give Democrats more seats in Congress. We have team coverage tonight on this historic legislation. ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen is live at the Capitol, but we start with ABC 10's Garj Palsanga, who's live from the California Democratic headquarters in downtown Sacramento, where Governor Newsom just spoke. Garj.
Yeah, and Becca, the governor adamant this was not the fight that they started, but instead they were dragged into. And those were just some of his remarks that he said here at the news conference at the California State Democratic headquarters. And he came here because after signing those bills, and let's go and show you that video, he signed those bills. That is what set off the special election. Now, that question whether voters want to accept this new congressional maps will appear as Proposition 50 during the November election. Newsom says this will give Californians the power to hold the Trump administration accountable through greater oversight and transparency. Democrats pushing it through just before the deadline, citing recent redistricting talk efforts in Texas. And here's a little bit more of what the governor had to say.
Hundreds of thousands of people have already contributed to this cause. It's extraordinary. I've never seen it. Honestly, I've been doing this a long time. Nothing I've ever experienced like this. People understand this is a 5-alarm fire. People understand what's at stake in this country. And people are showing up. I told you I had 15,000 people on a quick Zoom just a moment ago. It's just, so it's a remarkable moment.
And a few other things the governor said is the Democratic Party can't just think differently, it has to act differently. And Newsom is standing firm, pushing back on GOP criticism, saying, quote, "We are not going to roll over and do nothing." So the stage has been set for this high-stakes showdown on Proposition 50, and the voters will decide on November 4th how they want to react. Reporting live from downtown Sacramento, Garj Palsanga, ABC 10.
Garj Paul, thank you so much. We now go to ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen, who's been at the Capitol all day watching these votes. And Jeannie, catch us up on what happened in the State House today.
Well, Becca, both the Senate and the Assembly had hours-long floor sessions today, with redistricting being the only matter at hand. Now, discussions were heated, especially because there was a last-minute amendment made to the package. But even with the disagreements and the last-minute amendments, lawmakers still passed the redistricting package.
We are not intimidated, and we are acting openly, lawfully, with purpose and resolve to defend our state and to defend our democracy.
With a standing ovation, Speaker of the Assembly Robert Rivas's ACA 8 passed the Assembly on Thursday morning to amend the state constitution to bypass the Independent Redistricting Commission and use newly drawn maps. But its passage came with a last-minute amendment.
Does not have a trigger provision if Texas were to move forward with redistricting, that this would only go into effect if that happens.
The language initially said this would only be operative if Texas, Florida, or any other state adopts new congressional maps. The last-minute amendment now says this measure is in response to redistricting in Texas in 2025.
The legislature is entitled to propose amendments to the state constitution. And unlike Texas, we are taking it to the voters. We are acting now to save our future. I respectfully ask for an aye vote on AB 604.
Over in the Senate, Republicans attempted to offer their own amendments to prevent any member who voted for this legislation to be prohibited from running for office for 10 years.
What's happening here is simple. Gavin Newsom and Democrat politicians are trying to ram through a corrupt redistricting scheme to rig California's elections. It's undermining both the letter and the spirit of the California Constitution.
It comes as legal battles are possible. On Wednesday night, the California Supreme Court denied a request from state Republican lawmakers to pause this process. Now, some Republican leaders are calling on the Department of Justice to investigate what's happened at the Capitol over the past couple of weeks. Now, an update to that trigger language. As I mentioned, it was taken out of the constitutional amendment earlier this morning, but it's now its own separate bill, which lawmakers will hear on Monday. And if passed, the bill will allow California to move forward with redistricting only if any other state adopts new maps as well. Live at the state capitol, Jeannie Nguyen, ABC 10.
Jeannie, thank you so much. Well, tonight, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee is applauding today's actions at the State House, saying in part, quote, there is too much at stake to not fight back. Costs are rising. The American people are struggling. The DCCC is ready to fight anywhere to take back the majority so that the People's House will again prioritize the people. The group offered state lawmakers the initial redrafted maps last Friday. Well, joining us now with more perspective is Rich Eisen. He's editor-in-chief of Capitol Weekly, a nonpartisan, nonprofit publication focused on politics here in California.
Yep.
Rich, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, these last few weeks, I think Newsies, Politicos, we've had our head in this redistricting conversation. But I think in coming weeks, more people will be essentially forced to hear about and consider this redistricting fight. Talk about what people will be seeing in the next 2.5 months between now and November 4th.
Well, first thing they're going to see is another bill on Monday, because the section of one of the bills that deals with the trigger aspect of all this, if Texas does this, then we're going to do this. That got pulled out of one of the bills today. It'll get heard on Monday. There will probably be a lot more pontificating, but it will get passed and it will get signed. So that'll be the first thing we see. After that, it's going to be a mad rush to define basically who's right and who's wrong here. That's going to be the thing that's going to take focal point over everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we know that the recall election for Governor Gavin Newsom back in 2021 cost the state some $200 million. Some lawmakers are estimating this special election in November could cost upward of $250 million. And that's just to administer the election. Talk about this spending you anticipate seeing on the campaign itself, the vote yes, the vote no.
Well, we've already seen Charles Munger come out and say he's going to, put $30 million into it. Kevin McCarthy, former House Speaker, former California lawmaker, has said, he's going to raise $100 million. That's the opposition side. The sources I know on the pro side say they're willing to spend at least that much money. Let's just say that they do. That's already $260 million. My guess is, and it's only a guess, but my guess is this could get significantly higher than that. I would not be surprised to see it get around 275.
And in such a truncated amount of time, just 2.5 months.
Absolutely. But, messaging and turnout are both very, very expensive, and I think both sides are willing to spend.
Yeah, absolutely. Texas is the reason that Democrats here have cited this whole redistricting effort in the first place. California's plan will flip 5 House seats Democratic, they hope. In Texas, it will be Republican, 5 seats. That neutralizes it. But what if more states jump in the fray? Where does this end?
I've seen various opinions on this. Now, I used to cover legislatures all over the country, and the one thing that people have to keep in mind here is that not every state has the same system. There's about 26 redistricting commissions around the country. Other states do things differently. Obviously, Texas does, because they're able to do this with a simple vote, whereas we had to literally change the Constitution to be able to do it. So, it's really hard to say. Indiana, New York, Ohio, they've all talked about getting in. There will be other states that are, Illinois has talked about a little bit, New York. The other thing you have to look at is some of them already have. The breakdown is going to be hard for Democrats or Republicans to gain more than what they've already got. So it's way too soon to know exactly what any 1 or 2 or 3 states would mean.
Sure. And speaking of, California Democrats' goal to flip 5 seats, I was texting with a friend of mine today, and she said, what are the chances that essentially the math doesn't math, that the California Democrats don't get these anticipated 5 flipped seats if voters, of course, approve the math?
Well, that would certainly be bad news for Gavin Newsom. I mean, he was asked that question today at the press conference, and he said, we're going to essentially, we will roll with what happens. I mean, you really, at this point, this is what they can control. They can get this to a vote to the people, and then they can message the living heck out of it on both sides, and then we're going to see what happens. And yes, if it doesn't work out the way they want to, it's going to have some long-term ramifications, I think, for him.
Yeah, a lot of political capital Governor Newsom is staking on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
For folks watching this, maybe distantly, maybe very closely, what's your message? Why should people be paying attention to this, and why should people be caring about this? I think you said in a political episode of your podcast, the Capitol Weekly podcast recently, that redistricting is something that usually makes people's eyes kind of droop, but it's pretty important right now.
Oh, man, yeah, for years and years and years. That was a great way to get people to tune out anything you were talking about if redistricting was part of that. But it's become like everything else. Everything we do, it feels like, has become super political. And so people are paying attention to this now. And they should have always been paying attention to this. I mean, we have a redistricting commission in California because before that we had what we jokingly called the incumbent protection plan, where, you know, one party had made a deal with the other to make them the permanent minority in exchange for some, you know, a little more power here up front. And you know, there's a lot of that goes on around the country. One of the things that may come out of this, and I'm not optimistic, but hopeful. We're already seeing a lot of people on all sides saying this is the time to have a federal law that you know bans this kind of thing around the country, and we have 50 independent, you know, bipartisan redistricting commissions. You know, one in every state. And I think this will push a lot of momentum that way. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but I think we're all seeing now, without that, it could be chaos.
Yeah.
And, you know, it very well could be chaos.
Yeah.
I hope not. I think you hope not.
Yeah.
But it could be chaos.
That's certainly the fear. And like you said, this could be the catalyst for change on the federal level.
If there's anything that's positive that comes out of all of this, I hope that's it.
Yeah, very good. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Rich Eisen, editor-in-chief of Capitol Weekly. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind, California's redistricting push is in response to Texas's push. As we said, the Texas State Senate now has to vote on their maps intended to help Republicans pick up more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. President Trump asked Texas to take this up now ahead of next year's midterm elections. So once those maps become law, the new Texas congressional maps are likely to face legal challenges. Democrats allege Republicans targeted communities of color, which is illegal. Republicans reject that, saying they redrew the maps to create a political advantage, which is legal. For more on today's news conferences and what was said about redistricting, we've been streaming those throughout the day. You can watch them all by downloading the free ABC 10 Plus TV streaming app. The app is available on your TV.